Thank you for listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Birmingham, Alabama. The opinions of hosts and guests do not necessarily reflect the opinion of this network.
You are listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting, the best in paranormal talk, only on Paranormal Experience Radio. Broadcasting live out of Birmingham, Alabama. This is Ghost Talk with 187PI. Sit back and prepare yourselves for an adventure into the paranormal world with host Shelly Robertson and 187PI research team. Ghost Talk is broadcasting live from Ohio's most haunted jail. Learn about their ongoing research at the jail and abroad, investigation techniques, and their personal encounters. Here is your host of Ghost Talk and 187PI founder, Shelly Robertson.
Good evening, everyone. Welcome to Ghost Talk Radio with me as your host, Shelly Robertson. Tonight, I have a pretty interesting show planned for you, and I'm going to be discussing many different haunted locations in New Zealand. And I would like to invite all my listening friends out there tonight to join me in chat at WBHM-DB.com, where you can join in on the conversation or ask me any questions you may have. And if any of you have been into any haunted locations in New Zealand, come and tell me about them. I like to travel all over the world, even if it's just like a virtual reality type of thing. I do have some places on my bucket list that I want to go, overseas to check out for myself. But until then, I do all my research and I'm making my lists. And so tonight, I have a stack of places that we'll travel to in New Zealand that is crazy haunted, right? Some of the most haunted places. So, to get started, we all know New Zealand is famous for its nice blue waves and its lush green foliage, and not to mention, I've seen some fabulous dishes on what they eat there. But another exciting thing about this country is its collection of haunted places, from hospitals to schools and hotels to castles. All kinds of eerie sights are found all across the country. And we're going to visit some of these places right now. So, let's visit the Larnac Castle in Dunedin, New Zealand, okay? This castle was built as a private residence of William James Muddy Larnac. And the construction of this castle began in 1871, and it wasn't completed until 1874. Now, there was an addition built onto the castle that was actually a 3,000 square foot ballroom that was made in 1887, and it was a birthday present to Larnac's eldest daughter, Kate. So the resulting complex, this mansion, okay, it eventually contained 43 rooms and required a staff of 46 servants. I mean, I'm telling you, I could get by with having just like one maid, and I would be happy. So could you imagine a staff of 46 to take care of everything, right? Now, the complex also included 35 acres, which was reserved for the grounds around the castle, right? It also had a winery and a home farm that was 300 acres, with its own farmstead, including they had like 300 cows and stables, and there was even quarters for farm workers, okay? Now, the building, which Lanark himself simply called it the camp, it was coined a castle by the local press on December 8th of 1874, right? And this happened a few days after him and his wife Eliza moved in. Now, of course, after a series of personal and financial setbacks, he died by suicide in New Zealand's Parliament buildings in October of 1898. So, as you can imagine, there was legal battles over Larnach's will, okay, and you can just imagine how that went. And the Larnach family sold the house in 1906, and it's deemed one of the spookiest places in New Zealand. The Larnach Castle is famous for being one of the few castles in the country. And so, you know, everything always has a legend and a story and how things become haunted and what happened. Well, the story for Larnach's Castle goes, like I said, the castle's ballroom was gifted by Larnach to his daughter, Katie, on her 21st birthday. Now, okay, so unfortunately, and you know, we always have to have an unfortunately, she died young due to typhoid cancer, okay? His first two wives also died while in this castle. And then, you know, he committed suicide, but here's why he committed suicide, okay? He learned that his son and his third wife was having an affair. That caused him, on top of financial problems, that caused him to commit suicide. Now, later, the castle was also a mental hospital during the World Wars, all right? And so you can imagine what kind of energies and stuff has been left at this castle from that, as well as all the deaths and turmoil, all right? Katie's apparition has been reported seen dancing in the ballroom many times, and Larnach himself has been spotted roaming the halls and corridors, right? There's been many reports of people being pushed or being touched on the back. And there's been other paranormal activity that has also been reported there as well, such as there's been some phantom music and footsteps. And so if you want to see one of the very few castles and experience the haunting, yeah, that's where you'll need to go, the Lanark Castle. Next, we're going to visit the town of St. Bathans. Now, the area had previously been known as Dunstan Creek, and the town itself once boasted over 2,000 miners, and it had no less than 13 pubs. So, obviously, after everybody got out of the mines in the evenings, they wanted to go drink down some cold ones. So, there was a lot of pubs, all right? Now, today, the only remaining hotel is the Vulcan Hotel. And the Vulcan Hotel is restored, and it is reportedly very haunted, and it's located on the main street of St. Bathans. It was originally called the Ballarat Hotel, and it was built in 1882 of mud brick. And there is this shamrock, which can be seen still on the front of the hotel, and it's a relic from the times of the rivalry between the Irish settlers from St. Bathans and the Welsh settlers from Cambrian That's just down the road from St. Bathans, okay? Now, the rivalry was known locally as the War of the Roses, and at one time, the feud between the two villages was quite bitter. And there was some years back, a television film crew, they claimed to have encountered the ghost there. And they were so frightened that they left St. Bathans without finishing their filming, and they never returned. So what's interesting about the Vulcan Hotel is there's this room 101, or it's also been dubbed the Rose Room, and it's reportedly home to the spirit of a young woman thought by some people to be a prostitute known as Rose. She was strangled to death in the hotel in the 1880s. Now, allegedly, she still appears from time to time. The thing is, folks, she only haunts men. So it was one night back in the town's gold mining days. This prostitute named Rose, she rented the front room of the hotel, which is Hotel Room 101, and morning came and she was found raped and robbed and strangled to death. Now, over the years, Rose has been seen and felt by staff members and many, many guests at the hotel. There are accounts from a few male, patrons reportedly being woke up because they were being held down with hands around their throats and had an overwhelming sense of fear, right? These are the most common reports, and some have a theory being that Rose might be getting back at men for causing her death, right? I have a theory that it could be, the sleep, the sleep affliction that people have, but nevertheless, who knows for sure. Now, there's also been many reports of lights going on and off, doors creaking, sudden drops in temperature, phantom footsteps, and other ghostly apparitions. There's this mysterious shadow that's been seen at the foot of some guests' beds. Groaning is heard in the hallways, and something pretty unsettling is kettles will start to boil water without even being turned on. Doors lock themselves, and there is a spirit who is often seen reclining on a chaise lounge in the dining room. So how interesting and very, very haunted. So maybe fellas out there, if you want to feel choked by a ghost, go stay at the Vulcan Hotel. Now let's travel on to Auckland to the Carlisle House. Now, it was built in 1886, and it was formerly known as the Costly Training Institution for Orphans. The Carlisle House is considered by locals in the area to be extremely haunted, right? There's many myths that surrounds it, and one of the most disturbing ones that I have heard and am aware of is that 43 young boys died of smoke inhalation during a fire in 1912. Now, the fire was supposedly started by a neglected candle, which spread to the curtains and went racing through the dorms, right? Obviously, it was a terrible tragedy. And along with that, the land itself is tainted by the traumatic events that took place on that night. It's, the building itself has just soaked up the aftermath of the death of these young boys. The children are said to still stalk in the corridors. Some say that you can feel ghostly eyes peering through the stained glass windows, and you can hear them laughing, and at times you can hear them crying, and possibly that was for someone to save them from the fire, right? The building, of course, is old. You hear creaks and everything, and the wind just blows through the hallways because it's not in the best of shape, and it rattles and shakes the walls. So that sets things up for a very eerie and spooky environment on its own. There's been lots of reports that it sounds like children's boots running up the worn down staircases, and people will be forever reminded of these children, because on the side of it says Children's Home 1910. It's letters are engraved in the stone, and a sad tragedy. And there have been lots of instances where you take, not just in New Zealand, but I'm talking about all over the world, where you take orphanages and they didn't have the best conditions. A lot of times there was abuse, and the conditions were poor that they lived in, and many times some of them died from sickness, from some starvation. And so you can imagine when you think about that, and almost every orphanage that I have ever heard of has hauntings, and reportedly so because of everything that all these children went through, and even if some of the children aren't still there, you think about this. Such energy and gloom and doom is going to be soaked up and leave the timestamp of residual hauntings on the building and possibly the property. So even if the building is totally demolished and a new one erected, you may still have all of those things happening at, orphanage sites that have had terrible, terrible conditions. Next, we shall travel on to this place called Karaka, New Zealand. It's south of Auckland, and we're going to go to the King Seat Hospital, okay? This was a psychiatric hospital, and it was built in 1929. The construction, and get this is what just slays me. The construction began on this psychiatric hospital when 20 patients from a nearby mental institution, they showed up at the site with 12 wheelbarrows and 10 shovels to get started on the construction. And isn't that just the craziest? Now, the King Seat Hospital was in operation from 1932 to 1999, but by the beginning of 1947, there were over 800 patients. And by 2004, more than 200 people had come forward to file complaints against the national government for claims of mistreatment and abuse of patients at New Zealand psychiatric institutes, including this King Seat Hospital, which happened during the 1960s and 70s. And, folks, with that, we will be back after this short break, and I'll tell you what happened. We'll be back after this short break. You're listening to Ghost Talk Radio on WBHM-DB.
You're listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting, the best in paranormal talk, only on Paranormal Experience Radio, broadcasting live out of Birmingham, Alabama. Since 1948, Fate magazine has brought you reports of the strange and unknown, all of them true. Fate Radio is carrying on that tradition, bringing you the unusual, macabre, strange, and bizarre. Join host Kat Hobson Sunday nights from 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern on WBHM Digital Broadcasting. You are listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting, the best in paranormal talk, only on Paranormal Experience Radio. Broadcasting live out of Birmingham, Alabama.
Oh, come on. I'm Southern, but... Nope. That'll do. Hello. I am Kat Hobson, host of Paranormal Experience here on WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Birmingham, Alabama. I enjoy having guests from all areas of the paranormal, from ghosts to ufology to cryptids and beyond. You'll find some of the best researchers in their fields bringing you some great information. Join me on Wednesday nights from 8 to 10 p. Eastern here on WBHM Digital Broadcasting.
We are confident that none of our hosts are possessed. Being repossessed a few times? That might be a different story. You are listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting, Birmingham, Alabama.
Thank you for listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Birmingham, Alabama. The time is 23 minutes after the hour.
Welcome back to Ghost Talk Radio with me as your host, Shelly Robertson. If you missed the first part of the show, no worries. You can listen to the full show archive on Spreaker, Google Play, iTunes, and iHeartRadio at your leisure. I invite any of you to join us in chat tonight in our chat room at WBHM-DB.com, where you can ask me any questions or add any stories that you have of your own. So prior to the break, I'm talking about the King Seat Hospital, right? It's a psychiatric hospital. And it closed down in 1999, right? So, and I was saying that by 2004, more than 200 people, they had come forward to file complaints against the national government for claims of mistreatment. And this was at all of the psychiatric institutions this happened, and including this King Seat Hospital. And this alleged mistreatment happened during the 60s and 70s, okay? Now, with a history of being one of the largest psychiatric hospitals in the country, King Seat Hospital, they saw a lot of death in its time. And it's said that the death of staff members, they actually exceeded the number of patients. Isn't that mind-blowing? And I can imagine that that's due to, mental and emotional trauma of working there through all these conditions, right? A lot of the suicides were committed on the very grounds of the hospital. There's been many, many sightings of this nurse that they call the Gray Lady, and she has been seen lots of times roaming the corridors, and there's been reports of phantom footsteps through the halls, and disembodied voices have also been heard at this King Seat Hospital. Now we're going to move from the hospital, and we're going to move on to the town of Napier and go to the Napier prison. So we're going from a hospital to a prison. And it was New Zealand's oldest prison. It's now a historic facility which offers guided day and night tours by appointment and self-guided audio tours all day long, right? Napier Prison was constructed on Napier Hill in 1862, and it was used until the early 1990s, and it was officially decommissioned in 1993. In addition to being a prison, the location was also used as an orphanage and a psychiatric unit. So you have a whole mess and a whole slew of things going on this property. Now, during the 19th century, 4 hangings were conducted at the prison, and there's been many reported sightings of spirits and ghosts of many suicides that happened within the cells in the prison. And most of these ghosts have been seen around the graves or the hanging yard. And obviously, those may be spirits in turmoil. They're definitely unrest, right? Now, there's also this ghost in the parole room who makes contact with everyone by shoving them. People get pushed around in there. There have been reports of unexplained footsteps, disembodied voices, and get this, disembodied faces. Yes, you heard me that right, folks. Just faces. Now, that would be kind of freaky to see. Just the face floating around. Doors open and close on their own. And the ghost of a murderer on the anniversary of his execution. Now, that's the best known former prisoner. And he is Roland Edwards, okay? He was a mass murderer whose spirit is said to still haunt the area. He died on July 15th, and they say that the paranormal activity is more prevalent around the anniversary of his death. And I do believe that from stuff that happens at my own haunted location. Also, this location has also been featured on a paranormal TV show as well. So, you want to visit the prison and go take a tour and see if you get shoved? Well, then you go visit. We're going to move on now to the Waitomo Caves Hotel in Waitomo District's Kings Country. And this is above the Waitomo Caves in New Zealand, okay? And it was built in 1908 on the ancient land of the Maori. And Maori is the Polynesian tribe, kind of like, in comparison, they're not the same, but compare to our Native American Indians, okay? We can compare them that way, just so you guys get a feel for what this is. I could go into detail about these people, but it's a ton of information. That'd be a whole show. And it is believed that the Maori princess, she haunts this hotel. Now, it's got a reputation, folks, of being the most haunted spot and the most haunted hotel in all of New Zealand. Many incidences of noises and screams and children's laughter. And get this, lots of reports of bathtubs dripping blood, right? Some people have reported experiencing drastic drops in temperature in the dining room. And here's something freaky. People experience feelings like something's walking through them. I have not experienced this. I'm sure it's something, right? it would take you aback, I think, if it felt like something was walking through you. Lots of reports. So that sounds like a maid's cart traveling down the hall. You know what the maid's cart sounds like. And this has been reported in the lower part of the hotel. And it's also been reported by hotel staff and guests that there is a ghost there that likes to play tricks on them. And this apparition has been seen in the dining room. And there's also been, the general uneasy feelings in the atmosphere. And that's reported by a lot of people too. Rooms have moving lights, like balls of light. Objects get moved. And they even have reported hearing screams in some of the rooms. A former staff member's spirit is said to come there from time to time too. And when he shows up, he arranges the guests' shoes nicely and neatly. So, and that's odd. So he's making you comfortable and straightening up your things. Very interesting. Let's jaunt over now to this place called Lake Alice, to Lake Alice Hospital, which, of course, is a rural psychiatric facility in Lake Alice, New Zealand. It was opened in August 1950, and it also had a maximum security unit that at one time the prison system utilized when they had a problem. Now, like many New Zealand psychiatric hospitals, Lake Alice was self-sufficient with its own farm, workshop, bakery, laundry. It even had a fire station. It had swimming pools, glass houses, and vegetable gardens. So it was, kind of self-sufficient, and I can imagine that some of the functional patients there probably also helped to work some of these areas on the grounds. Now, the facility started slowly shutting down in the mid-1990s, and it finally completely closed the doors in October of 1999, right? There were former patients of the hospital's child and adolescent unit. They made allegations that abuse took place there during the 1970s. And that included the use of electroconvulsive therapy, where this would cause the person to go as far as pass out even. One patient described the feeling as a sledgehammer hitting the side of his head. So I can imagine that was not very pleasant and terrible. Mistreatment also went on with the ECT machine, where patients would be instructed to shock fellow patients, sometimes on their genitals and other body parts. That is cruel and disgusting. And they would have injections as punishments from this medication called paraldehyde. And that's an anti-epileptic medication, and it's used to treat convulsive disorders. It's also been used in the treatment of alcoholism, in the treatment of nervous and mental conditions, to calm and relax patients who are nervous or tense and to produce sleep. However, this drug, paraldehyde, it's generally been replaced by safer, more effective medicines today for treatments of alcoholism and nervous and mental conditions. Okay, now the main reason this drug was used there was for sedation, right? And the drug was very painful and could leave the patient unable to walk for hours. Just think about that, folks, hours. The medication was either given as an injection into the muscle or through the anus. That's terrible. The New Zealand government, they issued a written apology in 2001, and they have paid out a total of $10.7 million in compensation to 183 former patients, right? That is just, I don't even know if that's enough for all that treatment, if you ask me. Okay, so this fella, Dr. Leaks, he was the former head of the unit there, right? And he gave up the practice of medicine in 2006 to kind of stall a disciplinary hearing by the Medical Practitioners Board of Victoria. Now, separately, an Australian court ordered him to pay $55,000 in damages to a woman patient for sexually abusing her. There are just many stories that have circulated throughout the years of Lake Alice Hospital being actively haunted by spirits, right? Staff working their shifts have told of mysterious apparitions, voices, being touched by invisible hands, surgical equipment moving without human interaction, and figures seen wandering the halls. So, what a place, right? And I'm sure it's probably haunted to no end with all the things that went on there. Next, we're going to travel and roam on to the St. James Theatre in Auckland. Now, the St. James Theatre is a heritage stage theatre and cinema located on Queen Street in Auckland, New Zealand. It was built in 1928. It was actually a replacement for the older Fuller's Opera House and was originally designed for vaudeville acts. And you know what? When I was a kid, I had seen some vaudeville acts like on TV and HBO and stuff, and I used to like them. The theater has actually been closed since 2007, and this was after a fire raised concerns about safety and, compliance with all the codes, okay? And there's numerous ghosts reported to haunt this theater, okay? One of the more regular sightings is this ghost named Yuri. And he was a Russian performer who supposedly fell or jumped from the fly floor above the stage, to his death, of course. Another claim is that he was pushed by another Russian performer who was an actress, and her name was Pasha. Now, it's said that Yuri was infatuated with one of the dancers who avoided his advances in favor of a theater electrician, okay? And this is how the story goes. And so it's not truly known whether he committed suicide out of despair or rejection, or he was pushed, or he just simply accidentally fell. Yuri has been seen playing with the lights, in particular, switching them all back on again once the theater has been locked up for the night. A theater projectionist, he said that Yuri has saved his life twice while working in the theater, kept him from a dangerous fall, pushed him back. There's also this, what they call a wailing woman, and she's a frequent apparition who is said to wail and moan in the middle of the night. The story goes that the woman was a struggling actress, and she was booed off stage one night, and she took it hard, and she committed suicide that night by slitting her wrist. And it's thought that it's her ghost that causes many of the unfortunate accidents that happen around the theater. They thinking that she's doing this as vengeance, right? Because there's been several actresses who've suffered sprained ankles, falls from ladders and steps, and sudden colds and sore throat infections, rendering them unable to perform or sing properly or even perform at all. Now, I don't know if that's actually due to the ghost, or they actually been out and about and caught a bug during flu season, but they're accrediting this to this wailing woman, right? This filmmaker, his name's Peter Jackson, he's even made claims of encountering the mysterious wailing woman. He said he saw her many years ago standing at the foot of his bed in his apartment, which was situated across from the St. James Theater. The alleged ghost of Stan Andrews is also supposed to be residing within the theater and is often heard wheezing as he lurks around the backstage corridors during performances. Then there's this unknown tall, thin man, and he looks to be about 30, and he's been seen in the theater numerous times, but outside of the performance times, like just during the off times. And here's another. This theater is so darn haunted. There's just reports of all kinds of stuff. There is reports of an entire boys' choir haunts the theater. You can hear the phantom singing. The story regarding this is that the choir played their last song at the St. James Theater during the Second World War before heading off on tour by boat. Okay, so they're going on tour now. And no more was ever heard from the boys again, and the ship never reached its destination. And staff often hear their music coming from up in the stands. That's been reported many, many times. And this next place we're going to go to is Spirits Bay. And this is an isolated bay at the end of Aupuri Peninsula near the northern tip of New Zealand's North Island. The bay is 7.5 miles in width, and it's actually one of two bays, the other being Tom Bowling Bay. And in short length of coast right there, that marks the tip of the North Island, okay? Now, there's a long walking path, which is almost 5.5 miles long, and it runs beside the bay. The bay is considered a sacred place in Maori culture, and according to local legend, it is the location where spirits of the dead gather to depart from this world and either travel to their ancestral home or the afterlife, or wherever it is that these ghosts go, right? And they're seen doing this at this tree, this huge old tree above the bay. Now, people claim to have seen ghostly apparitions walking along the beach and disappear at a particular spot. So that would be an eerie sight to see, I believe, if you just saw people, what looked like to be people, and then all of a sudden they all disappear after walking along, right? And with that, folks, we'll be right back after this short message. You are listening to Ghost Talk Radio on WBHM, Birmingham, Alabama.
You are listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting, the best in paranormal talk, only on Paranormal Experience Radio, broadcasting live out of Birmingham, Alabama.
Oh, come on. I'm Southern, but... nope. That'll do. Hello, I am Kat Hobson, host of Paranormal Experience here on WBHM Digital Broadcasting out of Birmingham, Alabama. I enjoy having guests from all areas of the paranormal, from ghosts to ufology to cryptids and beyond. You'll find some of the best researchers in their fields bringing you some great information. Join me on Wednesday nights from 8 to 10 p. Eastern here on WBHM Digital Broadcasting.
Since 1948, Fate magazine has brought you reports of the strange and unknown, all of them true. Fate Radio is carrying on that tradition, bringing you the unusual, macabre, strange, and bizarre. Join host Kat Hobson Sunday nights from 8 to 10 p.m. Eastern on WBHM Digital Broadcasting.
Listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting, the best in paranormal talk, only on Paranormal Experienced Radio, broadcasting live out of Birmingham, Alabama.
Welcome back to Ghost Talk Radio. With me is your host, Shelly Robertson. And tonight I'm talking about some of the most haunted places in New Zealand. So if you missed the first part of the show, no worries, folks. You can listen to the full show archive at your leisure on Google Play, iTunes, iHeartRadio, and of course, Spreaker. If anybody wants to, I would like you to invite you all to join me in chat at WBHM-DB.com. Where you can add your own haunted stories or ask me any questions you might have. So, before the break, we, left this little bay, Spirit Bay. And next, we're going to travel on to this place called Chateau Tongaro, which is a New Zealand hotel and resort complex. And it's located close to the Wakapapa ski field, and it's also close to the volcanic peaks of Mount Tongaro. Now, it has boundaries within the Tongaro National Park, and it's New Zealand's oldest national park, right? The Chateau Tongaro Hotel, the building for this hotel was completed in 1929, and over the years it's had extensive refurbishment, and it still retains much of the style of the pre-Depression era. And, the hotel was eventually taken over by the National Park Board, and the chateau was commandeered by the New Zealand government and was a woman's asylum in the 1940s. It's been a site of murder, suicide, and accidents, which makes it one of the eeriest places in New Zealand. Some of the reports are curtains moving on their own, doors opening and closing. Something strange that happens is every once in a while they will get a guest that is unwelcome to one of their resident ghosts, and the guests will find their bags packed and ready to go in the morning. So that would be quite a shocker. It's like, move on, right? Moving on, let's take a ride through the Otira Tunnel, which is a railway tunnel on the Midland Line in South Island of New Zealand. It's between Otira and Arthur's Pass. Now, the construction happened in 1907, and they had a breakthrough celebration, and that was held on the 21st of August in 1918 by the Minister of Public Works. Now, the story goes, now this isn't so scary, this one, But the story goes that a Scottish man was killed during this construction of the tunnel, and it's been reported that he apparently helps people find their way home. His apparition has been seen countless times in and around the tunnel. Very, very interesting. So we have a helpful ghost there. Next, let's travel to Christchurch, New Zealand, to this place called Riccarton Racecourse Hotel. Now, the Racecourse Hotel and Motor Lodge is situated on Racecourse Road, and the hotel was built in 1883 at a cost of only $11,000. I wish those prices would stay like that today. Now, the licensee of this hotel, who was named Mr. McDonald Fraser, he was found murdered in this hotel in 1933. Unfortunately, the killer was never found, and there's been many, many reports of seeing his apparition roaming the corridors, and actually he's been spotted throughout the property. Next, we will travel on to this place called Camp Adair. And it was a YMCA camp, and it's located in Hunau, south of Auckland. And it was first established in 1913, and it has over 100 acres of land. And the camp was purchased by the YMCA in 1938, all right? It currently provides outdoor recreational facilities, including farmland and, native plants and brush, right? The historic schoolhouse located on the property, it can be rented for events and functions, right? Camp Adair is a popular location for camping trips for schools in the Auckland area and boasts a wide variety of outdoor activities, including wall climbing, archery, air rifle shooting, kayaking. There's just a lot of things to do. And there are 3 self-contained villages on this site: the main lodge, the Hugh Lambie village, and the Graham Glacier village, each which have campfire areas, okay? Now, the legends surrounding Camp Adair centers on the historic schoolhouse, which is often the center of gatherings at the camp, right? Generations of children who have stayed at the camp have been told the tale of a group of children who, while staying at the camp, were murdered by their teacher in the schoolhouse building. Now, the legend states that the murderous teacher, who is said to have had a fiery red beard, he can be seen lurking through the windows of the schoolhouse late at night. So, that is the big haunting of the YMCA camp. Now, let's go to this place called Erskine College. And Erskine College is in Wellington, and it was built in 1905 by the Society of the Sacred Heart. And it's a collection of Class 1 recognized historic buildings, which includes the Chapel of the Sacred Heart and the main block convent. Now, the premises there, it is served as a Catholic girls' boarding school, convent of Sacred Heart at Island Bay, and it did this until it closed in 1985, right? Now, the chapel has been described as French Gothic architecture with German stained glass windows, an Italian marble altar, and vaulted ceilings, right? So, is the place haunted? Well, a lot of people say it is, and there's plenty of rumors and theories about the place. Apparitions have been seen, voices have been heard, shadow ghosts have been seen, odd bangs and taps and noises, and mediums have spoken of the building being haunted by both children and adults. Some people believe that the Erskine is haunted by Old Mother Superior, and there are rumors about a mysterious blood stain on the chapel floor that they say reappears soon after being washed and removed, right? And the story goes that it is from a young girl's untimely passing. Whether she was killed or not, we don't know. Now we shall stop at our final resting place in tonight's journey, and that is the Karori Cemetery in Karori. Karori Cemetery is New Zealand's second largest burial ground, covering nearly 98 acres. It was the final resting place of about 83,000 people. The cemetery was established in 1891 to replace the overcrowded Bolton Street Cemetery. Of course, just like anything else, it quickly filled up, and by the 1950s, it had reached its maximum capacity. The Karori Cemetery became Wellington's principal cemetery in 1965. The only plots available now at the cemetery are pre-purchased ash or family plots and children's plots. The Karori Cemetery, it had a crematorium, and it was New Zealand's first crematorium and is the oldest one in Australia, and it opened in 1909, and it carries out about 450 cremations a year. Now, there's many prominent New Zealanders are buried at this cemetery, including people involved in the Shackleton expedition, and you can look that up and learn all about that. And this cemetery here is many reports of apparitions roaming around all areas of the cemetery. And there's reports of these strange balls of orange lights floating around and zipping around there in the cemetery. And people have reportedly seen these during daylight hours. Very bizarre. Now, I haven't seen any balls of light zipping around, but I know there's lots of people who have seen them, so I would like to see what one of those looks like sometime. Now, next up, let's talk a bit about what's going on here at the old Paulding Jail. With Ohio opening up the state, we're getting ready to schedule more of our events. We have some ghost story nights planned, as well as some psychic reading nights planned, where you can get a tarot, palm, or crystal ball reading. We are planning a few more public ghost hunts for this year. There won't be that many of them. And we are about to list all of our private investigation sessions that will be available for this year. We don't have a lot of availability for privates on weekends. That's left for this year. There's a few. So if you want a private investigation for a weekend, keep your eye on our Facebook page. Just type in the search 187PI and we'll pop right up. Follow us there. I post them all there. And keep, or if you don't follow social media, keep an eye on our website, 187pi.com, under Investigate the Old Paulding Jail. Keep an eye for the dates. Will pop up there on the calendar of availability. And a lot more things are planned. We just got to let the state get totally opened up. I'd like to let you know what's going on here at our fabulous network, WBHM-DB. We have some fantastic show by some amazing hosts and interesting guests. All shows are at 8 p.m. Eastern. Sunday nights, we have Fate Mag Radio with show host Kat Hobson. Monday nights, we have Paranormal Pride Show with host Denise Pridemore. Wednesday nights, we have Paranormal Experience Show with Kat Hobson. You will want to be sure to tune into those shows as well. I mean, 4 nights a week, you know what you're doing. 8 o'clock, tune in. Something exciting going on every night. I want to take a brief moment to thank everyone for listening to tonight's live broadcast. I want to thank everybody out there doing a great job. And during this time of reopening up our states and our local cities, and trying to keep you and yours all safe, I want everyone to have a great evening and enjoy your weekend. Keep safe, everyone. Good night, friends.
You are listening to WBHM Digital Broadcasting, Birmingham, Alabama.